Hey, you. You're finally awake. You were trying to cross the border, right? Walked right into that Imperial ambush, same as us. And that thief over there.
Damn you Stormcloaks. Skyrim was fine until you came along. Empire was nice and lazy. If they hadn't been looking for you, you could have stolen that horse and been halfway to Hammerfell. You there, you and me, we shouldn't be here.
The story of Bethesda starts back in 1981, when Christopher Weaver established Media Technology Associates. The company provided engineering and media consulting for private companies and government organizations. While waiting for potential new contracts, the company acquired an Amiga personal computer with which Weaver and a co-worker, Ed Fletcher, began experimenting with. Fletcher was a fan of American football and suggested that they develop a football video game for the system, which Weaver supported despite no interest in the sport. Fletcher developed the game Gridiron out of Weaver's house in Bethesda, Maryland, in roughly 9 months. Weaver formed Bethesda Softworks on the proverbial kitchen table of his Bethesda home as a division of Media Technology on June 28, 1986. The formation was described as an experiment to see if the PC market was a viable place to develop games. After no new console versions of Gridiron had been released, Bethesda stopped work on the project and sued Electronic Arts for $7 million, claiming the company blocked the game's release while incorporating many of its elements into Madden. The case was resolved out of court. During the holiday break of his senior year in college, Todd Howard obtained a copy of Wayne Gretzky Hockey by Bethesda. He visited the Bethesda offices, which he passed by daily on his way to school, and asked for a job at the company, but was rejected. Todd was told that he needed to finish school as a prerequisite. After graduating, Todd managed to sneak back into the Bethesda offices despite the best efforts of security, and was rejected again due to a lack of job opportunities at the company. At least that's what they told him. Howard then started working for a smaller game company in Virginia, which enabled him to visit several conventions like the Consumer Electronics Show, where he continued to pester Bethesda for a job. Bethesda eventually gave in to Howard's desperate pleas and hired him as a producer in 1994. His first game development credit for Bethesda was as the producer and designer of the Terminator, Future Shock, followed by work as a designer on Skynet and The Elder Scrolls II, Daggerfall. Todd was made project leader for the first time on The Elder Scrolls Adventures Redguard, released in 1998. In 1990, the company moved from Bethesda to Rockville, Maryland, and by February 93, the company employed 40 people. The first game Bethesda published and developed, based on a popular film franchise, was The Terminator for DOS. The title was released in July 1991, coinciding with the theatrical release of the film Terminator 2, Judgment Day.
I was definitely one of those kids from a very young age who was into video games, and it was into computers and math and all of that stuff, Dungeons & Dragons, Star Wars. I convinced my parents that I needed an Apple II so I could be smarter and get better at school and all of that, but I just wanted to make games, so I'd write my own games. And very much into the PC stuff. Wizardry was probably the first, role-playing game on the Apple II computer that I remember going, oh, this is how it should be. But Ultima, I think Ultima 3 was soon after that for me, and that became much more of a real world. There are people I can go talk to, I can explore this landscape. And I think that kind of, origin is still one of probably my favorite gaming company that has been. I did well in school and I got through it, but my looking off was always, I want to make games. I was very much a self-taught programmer, even in college, writing my own stuff.
In 1994, the company would release the first game in the Elder Scrolls series, Arena. The game was the work of programmer Julian Lefay. Arena takes place on the continent of Tamriel, complete with wilderness, towns and dungeons which are procedurally generated. The game features a day-night cycle and includes a spell creation system that allows players to mix various spell effects. Development for Arena was initially planned to have the player travel in towns across Tamriel, fighting other teams in their arenas until the player became Grand Champion. As development on the game progressed, side quests took more importance, and the tournament aspect of the game took a back seat. Role-playing elements were added, and the game expanded to include towns outside the arenas and dungeons beyond the cities. Although not as popular as the later games in the series, Arena generated a cult following and sold 120,000 units. In 1996, Bethesda would go on to release The Elder Scrolls II: Daggerfall. The story follows the player, sent by the Emperor, to free the ghost of King Lysandus from his earthly shackles and discover what happened to a letter sent from the Emperor to the former Queen of Daggerfall. Compared to its predecessor, Arena, the player can now only travel within 2 provinces in Tamriel, High Rock and Hammerfell. However, Daggerfall consists of 15,000 cities, towns, villages, and dungeons for the character to explore. Arena's experience point-based system was replaced with a new approach that rewards the player for utilizing role-playing elements within the game. Daggerfall includes more customization options, featuring an improved character generation engine, as well as a GURPS-influenced class creation system, offering players the chance to create their own classes and assign their own skills. Daggerfall's most profound influences came from whatever analog games and literature Julian Lefay or Ted Peterson happened to be playing or reading at the time, such as Dumas the Man in the Iron Mask and Vampire the Masquerade, which influenced the idea of vampire tribes throughout the region. According to Bethesda marketing director Pete Hines, Daggerfall sold roughly 700,000 copies by mid-2000 and was still selling 4 years after release. He called it likely the company's biggest success at the time. In 2019, Lefay co-founded the independent game studio Once Lost Games with former Bethesda Softworks developers Ted Peterson and Vijay Laxman, and announced they would be working on a new open-world role-playing game called The Wayward Realms, which would serve as a spiritual successor to Daggerfall. Although initially offered $8 million by a major publisher, the team rejected the offer as they believed they could not make the game for less than $12 million. On May 30, 2024, a Kickstarter campaign for the project was launched with the goal of reaching $500,000 to fund 1 year of development on an early access build, which could then be shopped around to publishers. According to Julian Lefay, the whole idea with Daggerfall was that, like a pen and paper role-playing game, you could play for years. You know, keep the same characters, keep on doing stuff. Thank you for watching, and be sure to watch out for the next part of the Bethesda story coming soon. Be sure to subscribe and check out our Patreon for more gaming content.